everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at something I know you're all familiar with, the cell phone.
Yeah, these little devices have become so integral to our lives, right?
For sure. But we're not just talking about what they do. We're going to go deeper, explore their impact and where they might be headed in the future.
You got it. It really is amazing how they've become so much more than just a tool for calls. I mean, we practically live on these things.
Right. We manage everything from our work to our relationships on them.
Exactly. And it's all because they address those really basic human needs. We crave connection, information, and these devices provide both.
Totally. Cell phones give us instant communication and access to information pretty much anytime, anywhere. But hasn't that made us kind of demanding? We want it all now. The best cameras, the fastest processors, batteries that last forever.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, security has become a major concern too.
Speaking of cameras, what about the advances we've seen there? Like with Google's Pixel and their whole AI thing?
Oh, the Pixel's AI camera features are pretty groundbreaking. They've got things like Magic Eraser to remove unwanted objects from photos, and Real Tone, which makes sure skin tones are represented accurately.
I can barely keep up. Feels like there's something new every day. And don't forget about foldable phones. Samsung and their Galaxy Z Fold, they're really pushing the boundaries of what a phone can even be.
Foldables are definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
But they've presented some huge challenges when it comes to design and manufacturing, like the display, for example.
Yeah, I can imagine.
To make it work, Samsung developed this ultra-thin glass. It's super flexible, but also durable. It's quite impressive.
So cool. But it makes me think, with all this new tech and everyone wanting the latest and greatest, what about, sustainability?
That's a key consideration for sure. And thankfully, we are starting to see some positive changes in the industry. Apple, for instance, is committed to using recycled materials.
Right. They've been working on using 100% recycled cobalt in their batteries. And then there are companies like Fairphone going in a totally different direction with their modular designs.
Absolutely. Modular design is a big step forward. It means you can actually repair and upgrade the phone yourself.
It's like building blocks, so you're not just tossing the whole phone when one part breaks.
Precisely. And that extends the phone's life, which helps reduce e-waste. It's a win-win.
Love that. Okay, let's talk about something that's essential for power users. Processors. It's like the brain of the phone, right?
Yeah, if you're doing a lot of multitasking, gaming, or using demanding apps, the processor is super important. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 series is incredibly powerful, and of course there's Apple's A series chips. They're always pushing the limits.
And what about RAM? Like, how much do we really need these days?
Well, more RAM basically means smoother multitasking. I'd say aim for at least 8 gigabytes if you want to switch between apps without any lag.
Gotcha. Okay, last thing. Storage. We all have tons of photos, videos, apps. I'm always running out of space. What's a good amount to have?
I'd say 128 GB is a decent starting point, but luckily many phones also offer extendable storage, in case you need more.
Makes sense. Now, let's not forget about security. All that personal data on our phones, it's got to be protected.
Yeah.
What should people be looking for?
Biometric authentication is key, things like fingerprint sensors and facial recognition. And make sure to choose a phone from a company that has a good track record with security updates so you're protected from new threats.
That's good advice. So we've covered a lot. Cameras, foldable phones, processors, you name it. It's clear these little devices have become incredibly complex.
And the future, well, that's even more exciting. We got AI, new sustainable materials, and who knows what kinds of form factors they'll come up with next.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those future trends. What are you most excited about?
One thing I'm really interested in is how AI is going to change the way we interact with our phones.
Like, what do you mean? How will it actually change things for us?
Imagine your phone suggesting apps or features before you even realize you need them. Or it learning your communication habits and filtering out spam calls and annoying messages.
That's pretty amazing. It's almost like having a personal assistant living in your phone.
Exactly. AI has the potential to make our phones even more seamlessly integrated into our lives, anticipating our needs and making things easier.
Speaking of seamless integration, what about the physical design of phones? Anything beyond foldable screens?
Oh, there's some wild ideas being tossed around. Some companies are looking into rollable displays.
Rollable displays? That's insane.
Imagine a phone that expands into a tablet-sized screen when you need it and then shrinks back down to fit in your pocket.
Wow. It's hard to even picture. The future of cell phones is both exciting and mind-boggling. But with all this amazing tech, we can't forget that at the end of the day, they're just tools.
So true. What really matters is how they help us connect, create, and make the most of our lives.
Absolutely. So how can someone choose the right cell phone for their needs with all these things to consider? It can feel overwhelming.
It all starts with figuring out what you need the phone to do for you.
Yeah.
What are your priorities? Like if photography is your passion, then a phone like the Google Pixel with its awesome low light performance and AI features might be a good fit.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about gamers? What should they be looking for?
For gamers, the processor and RAM are key. They'll want something powerful like the Snapdragon 8 series or one of Apple's A series chips, and at least 8 gigabytes of RAM for a smooth gaming experience.
Got it. Now, battery life for people who are always on the go, that's super important.
Definitely. If you don't want to be tethered to a charger all day, look for a battery capacity of at least 4,000 milliamp.
Good to know. And display quality. A good screen can make a big difference in how much you enjoy using your phone.
Absolutely. OLED displays are the way to go for vibrant colors and deep blacks. And if you want a really smooth scrolling experience, look for a refresh rate of at least 90 hertz.
Those are some great tips. But even the best phones don't last forever. What can people do to make their phones last longer and, help reduce all that e-waste?
Keeping your software up to date is huge. Software updates often come with bug fixes and performance improvements that can really help. And taking care of your battery by avoiding extreme temperatures and not overcharging will definitely extend its life.
So simple, but so important. And when the time does come to get a new phone, what's the best way to get rid of the old one?
Look into trade-in programs. A lot of retailers and manufacturers offer trade-in values, so you can put that towards a new device. And if your old phone's totally dead, please recycle it properly. You don't want those harmful materials ending up in a landfill.
So true. It's easy to forget about that part when you're excited about a new phone, but it's super important to think about the environmental impact.
I agree. And there's always the option of repairing your phone instead of replacing it. Like if your screen cracks or your battery dies, extending the life of a phone is always a more sustainable approach. Plus, it can save you money.
Right. It's like a win-win-win.
Okay.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot today. Everything from how cell phones have evolved to what their future might look like. But there's one big question that keeps popping up for me. If cell phones are really becoming extensions of ourselves, what does that mean for the future of humanity?
Wow, that's a deep one. I think it really points to how closely technology and human evolution are becoming intertwined. As our devices get more sophisticated, our expectations and what we're capable of also change. It's a fascinating and complex relationship that's only going to get more interesting as time goes on.
Whoa, mind blown. Seriously, this deep dive has been incredible.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us on this journey into the world of cell phones. We hope you enjoyed it.
We covered a lot of ground in that first part.
I know, right? It's crazy how much there is to say about these things we carry around in our pockets every day.
And we haven't even scratched the surface.
Seriously. Like before the break, we were talking about how cell phones are almost like extensions of ourselves. It really makes you think about, where all this is going, what it means for the future.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest questions we need to be asking is about the role of AI in all of this.
Yeah. AI. It seems like it's everywhere these days.
Right. And as our phones become more and more personalized, more intuitive thanks to AI, we really have to think about the ethical implications. Like,
Yeah.
how is all that data being used?
That's a good point. It's not just about having cool new features. It's about understanding the impact on our lives, on society as a whole.
Exactly. It's almost like we're standing on the edge of something brand new, something really exciting, but maybe a little bit scary too.
Totally. So what are some of the challenges that need to be addressed as cell phones keep evolving?
Well, one of the biggest ones is making sure that everyone has access to this technology. I mean, the digital divide is a real problem. Not everyone has the opportunity to benefit from all the things that cell phones can do.
Yeah, that's true. We can get so caught up in the latest and greatest gadgets that we forget about the people who are being left behind.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the issue of sustainability.
Right. How do we make cell phones in a way that doesn't trash the planet?
We talked about recycled materials and modular designs earlier, but there's a lot of really exciting research happening in other areas too, like biodegradable plastics and plant-based components,
Wow, plant-based phones, that's cool.
and more efficient batteries. That's another big area of focus. Batteries that last longer and don't require as much energy to manufacture.
That's great. So it sounds like there's a lot of work being done to make cell phones more sustainable. But we still have the problem of e-waste. Like what happens to our old phones when we get new ones?
That's a great question. Sadly, a lot of electronic waste ends up in landfills, which is a
Mhm.
huge problem for the environment. That's why recycling our old phones is so important.
It is. I think most people don't even realize how harmful it can be to just throw your old phone in the trash.
It's true. A lot of people don't. But luckily, there are more and more programs popping up that make it easy to recycle old devices.
Yeah, I think most retailers have some kind of program now.
They do. It's definitely getting easier. And beyond recycling, there's always the option of repairing your phone instead of replacing it.
Oh, right, like if the screen cracks or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or the battery wears out. Repairing a phone instead of tossing it out is a much more sustainable approach. And it can save you money, too.
I love that. It's like good for the planet, good for your wallet, everyone wins.
It is. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
But, there's another aspect of cell phones that I think deserves more attention. Accessibility.
Accessibility. What do you mean by that?
I'm talking about making sure that cell phones can be used by people with disabilities.
Oh, I see.
It's about making sure everyone has the same opportunities to connect and communicate,
Mm,
regardless of their abilities.
that's really important. I admit I hadn't really thought about it before.
And it involves a lot of different things, like having alternative input methods for people who can't use a touchscreen, and screen readers for people who are visually impaired. It's about making sure that apps and websites are designed with accessibility in mind from the very beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about inclusivity, about recognizing that technology can be a powerful tool for empowering everyone.
So we've talked about ethical considerations with AI, the digital divide, sustainability, e-waste, and accessibility. It's pretty clear that there's a lot more to cell phones than just like, what apps you can download or how good the camera is.
There is. It's so much bigger than that.
Mm.
Cell phones are these incredible tools. They have the potential to change our lives in really profound ways. But we have to be mindful of the downsides. We have to be proactive and work towards a future where this technology benefits everyone.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so I know we've been talking a lot about the future, all these big ideas and possibilities, but let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. What advice would you give to someone who's just trying to make sense of the cell phone world right now?
Honestly, the best advice I can give is don't get caught up in the hype.
Yeah, the hype is crazy. Every year there's a new phone, a new feature, a new must-have thing. It's hard to keep up.
It is. It's overwhelming. But if your current phone is working for you, if it's meeting your needs, then there's no need to rush out and buy a new one.
Right. Just because everyone else is upgrading doesn't mean you have to.
Exactly. And when you are ready to upgrade, do your research. Compare different models and think about what's important to you. Is it sustainability, privacy, accessibility? Choose a phone that reflects your values.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about the past, the present, and the future of cell phones. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
But as we wrap things up, what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember? Something they can walk away with and really think about?
I think the most important thing to remember is that cell phones are more than just gadgets.
Yeah.
They're powerful tools for connecting with people, learning new things, expressing ourselves. But they are tools, and it's up to us to use them responsibly and ethically.
I love that. So true.
We have to think about the impact our choices have on the world around us.
Well said. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back to wrap things up in our final segment. It's wild to think how much cell phones have changed over the years. I mean, they've really transformed our lives, haven't they?
They have. It's a pretty amazing evolution when you stop and think about it.
From those clunky things we used to make calls to, these sleek, powerful devices we have now.
And it feels like we're just getting started.
Seriously, like with AI, foldable screens, and all the crazy advancements coming out all the time, who even knows what the future holds?
That's what's so cool about technology, right?
Mm.
It's constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible, always evolving.
It makes you wonder, like, what's next? What's the next big thing in the world of cell phones?
Hard to say for sure, but I think we can expect to see our devices become even more intertwined with our lives. Even more seamless integration.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about how we use our phones now. They're our cameras, our maps, our wallets, our entertainment systems. They connect us to the world.
It's true. We do pretty much everything on our phones these days.
Right. So in the future, I think that integration is just going to get deeper.
Mhm.
Our devices will become more intuitive, like anticipating our needs and connecting us to the information and services we want exactly when we need them.
That sounds amazing, but also kind of, I don't know, a little bit creepy.
I get that. There are definitely some ethical questions we need to think about. as technology becomes more integrated into our lives.
Like privacy, for example.
Exactly. As our devices collect more and more data about us, we have to make sure that information is being used responsibly, ethically. We need clear rules, regulations to protect our privacy.
You're right. It can't just be about the technology itself, right? It's about how we use it, how it impacts us, how it impacts society as a whole.
Absolutely. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to make sure we're using it in a way that benefits humanity.
So true. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember about cell phones?
Hmm. I think the most important thing is to remember that they're more than just gadgets. They're powerful tools. Tools that can connect us, inform us, entertain us, empower us. But we have to use them responsibly, ethically. We have to be mindful of the impact our choices have on the world around us.
That's a great point to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an amazing conversation.
It really has. It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in to this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a fascinating topic. But until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those brains buzzing.